Let's dive in. The Browns could become, keyword could, become the first team in the NFL to replace its entire starting offensive line.
I mean, the keyword could be should.
Should,
Yeah.
could.
No.
Here is, at the end of the season, with a little finagling, I'm taking ESPN's work on this, but the Browns starting offensive line. Cam Robinson's a free agent. Pochet's a free agent. Teller's a free agent. Conklin, who got hurt, is a free agent. DeJuan Jones is hurt. He could be back. Bitonio's set to be a free agent. But, Jason, you broke some news yesterday that the Browns have pushed back the decision date needed on him from Monday to what day is it? You want to explain that situation real quick before we dive in?
And that was a joint decision. The Browns couldn't just do it on their own.
Yeah, it was a joint decision.
Okay.
Yeah. They pushed it back to the end of the league year, start of the new league year.
Is that because he's undecided?
Apparently, I'm still surprised by
Yeah.
it because I thought it would be like pretty cut and dry that he was retiring.
Yeah.
So I'm a little surprised that they're pushing it back a few weeks, but they're pushing back a few weeks, obviously, clearly to give him more time to sort of weigh his – I mean, it's a huge decision, obviously, and he wants a few more weeks to make a decision. So the start of the league year is what, like March 11th?
Yeah, so it is a huge decision, and I'm not going to offer a prediction on Joel, but it is an important distinction either way, because March 9th is the beginning of the player movement period, and that's when teams can openly talk.
Right.
Really, the secret deals that are going to be made at the Combine next week start to leak out on March 9th. But the league year is not until March 11th at 4 p.m., and that's when trades can actually be processed, signings can be processed, and post-June 1 cuts can actually be made. They can't be made till that point. So it is important for the Browns and for Joel because they're probably going to have to use the post-June 1 designation on his money to save themselves like upwards of $12 or $14 million on next year's cap.
Yeah.
So to know that they have that in their back pocket, they don't know how March 9th is going to go. They don't know how much they might need. So that is an important – it might be nothing. It might be Joel's retired. It might be the Browns are completely moving on.
Yeah.
But it could potentially be a flexibility piece that determines how much they have for this move, that move, or then obviously corresponding moves.
If you guys had to bet right now on Bitonio specifically before we get to the rest of the offensive line, I'll give you three options. Retires, stays with the Browns for another year, goes to another team. What percentage would you give each?
Yeah, so I would say almost no percentage. I would say very small on goes to another team.
Okay.
And the only reason I'm not super strong on retirement is that last year, I think Joel thought that he would retire.
Yeah.
And he got to this point of the year and he felt good. And he talked to people and they just said it's about how you feel, it's about your family, and your family was like, if you feel good, go play. And I think so. I think he treated 2025 like it might be his last year in some way.
Right.
But right now, if he feels good and if he feels like he wants to go do it, I don't think he changed his mind last year. But I think that he thought that he was going to be way more in the retirement track than he actually.
So would you say more than 50%? Do you think he comes back? Or
no? I would say more than 50% he retires.
Okay.
But like I said, that gives me hesitation on saying he's absolutely going to retire.
Jason, do you agree that there's no chance he goes to another team?
I wouldn't say there's no chance, but it would be the third. It would be the third bucket.
Yeah, it's the third bucket for sure.
I'm probably with Zach. I'd probably put it at. I mean, if you'd asked me after the season, I'd have said 95% retirement. Now, since they pushed it back 3 weeks, I mean, I'd have to lower it.
Yeah.
To I don't know, throw a number out there, and I'll say 70, 75, whatever. And I would say probably maybe a 5% chance that he would play elsewhere. I've talked to people who advocate when you spend your whole career in one spot, especially when you haven't had a ton of success, go spend a year elsewhere just to see how the other half lives, just to see what it's like elsewhere, how other teams do it.
I'm sure there'd be plenty of teams, good teams that would like that.
Last year at this time, Joel did an appearance for the Browns at a coaching clinic at the stadium, something like that. And so a few of us went and talked to him because retirement was on the mind, and this is when the Myles Garrett stuff was going on and all of that. Joel's a spokesman. And that's when he kind of talked about, A, his shift in thinking, and B, one of the things he said that day is, I have not thought about playing somewhere else. But that is 13 months ago.
Right, who knows?
And this is a totally different situation because, frankly, they didn't put out a very good product last year.
Yeah.
And they appear to be moving forward. Now, we will debate and we won't know, is it going to be a total tank or move forward, or is it going to be now? But, the Browns and Joel have certainly, I'm going to say this, moved on from each other in a way, but nothing pen on paper or pen on paycheck yet either. So he could have changed that thinking, but last year he was very clear that he had not thought about playing anywhere else.
Go ahead.
Well, who the coaches are would matter in that. I don't know what he thinks about Monken. I've been led to believe he likes George Warhop, the new O-line coach.
Okay.
So that would play into it. is that enough to bring him back? No.
Yeah. That's
But-
not ultimately going to be the decision.
But that
yeah.
plays in. That's one of the factors.
Could he go to Atlanta?
I mean, he could go a lot of places.
Yeah,
I would think he might go closer to home.
Right,
He,
right,
he
that's
could go to Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta's thinking they're going to make the playoffs.
Right.
And in that division, that's a realistic thought.
Possibly.
We'll see
Yeah,
what
yeah.
happens. But yeah, I think it's that. Now, does he want to come back here and ultimately they stink, or he gets moved out to left tackle or something like that?
Right.
And it is kind of a new start. I mean, he played for Todd Monken for 8 months.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Did you, if you guys had to say, besides Joel, do you think there's any chance that any of these other guys come back?
The only one would be Poshik, and that's because he's dealing with the injury, and
Right.
he's not going to get gobbled up in the first week of free agency.
Right.
So potentially, if there's a good relationship there, and they think he's going to be healthy by a certain day,
Right.
the call could come in the summer if it goes a certain way for the Browns.
Sure.
The position that the Browns are in is they have to put all the forward thoughts ahead of the immediate thoughts. Right? They might just want to pay Devin Bush and not let him out. They might have some move, but they have to say, we have to see what we can get in this cheaper tier of free agency, in this second wave of trades, and in this draft before we commit to guys. I mean, all of these guys were in their 30s, and everybody knew that they were all coming, their contracts were all coming due, and they didn't draft anybody last year.
Nope.
So that's why this thing is so unsettled.
Right.
And I, like I said, so I'm not sure if Jack Conklin will play football again. I'm pretty sure that Wyatt Teller will not play for the Browns again, and Cam Robinson's not going to be back on this team unless it's a disaster, and he might be back in the summer too. Right?
Yeah, I mean, the Browns have not acquired Andrew Berry has not acquired a single quality offensive lineman in 6 years.
But I will tell you 3 things that did happen in December. 3 times they went to other teams' practice squads and claimed guys.
Right.
Or signed them from practice squads to the active roster just to have bodies, just to have options. And then they had a guy, too, the same thing happened to them. They put him back on the practice squad, a young offensive lineman they had kept all year long, and he got claimed by another team. So that's the game that you play.
Yeah.
And they chose to sit out this tier of it, so that's why they're positioned to maybe become the first team since 1970 to have to completely replace its whole offensive line.
Okay.
I will
Well,
predict.
let's look at some options then. Jason,
Let Jason
one
do his
thought.
prediction.
I
and then
will
we'll
predict
get
that
his
it's not going to be 5 new guys.
Okay.
I don't know.
Say 4?
Well, do you mean that Whippler or Zinter is going to play, or do you think that one of those guys is going to come back?
I guess I'm kind of counting Whippler.
No,
I think. Don't you think Whippler would be the starting center?
If Whippler's healthy, and unless they draft one in like the 3rd round, Whippler's probably the starting. He's under contract for 1 more year.
So would you count that as a complete overhaul? I mean, he did
Yes,
start at
because
the
he
end of the
wasn't
year.
he wasn't the starter.
He was
wasn't
only
a
the starter
starter.
the last month of the season.
Yeah.
So with that being said,
Yeah. Now let's talk about tackles.
Yes,
right.
these in particular
so
tackles.
When it comes to tackle, that of all the problems they have on the line, the biggest issue is the tackle. Tackles are the hardest to get. They had absolutely nothing at tackle the last few years. The only tackle on the roster, I believe, is DeJuan Jones, who can't stay on the field.
that is correct.
So
KT
some
Leviston
options
is on the roster.
Who
too.
is?
KT Leviston? Would
Leviston.
be.
Oh, KT
Yeah.
Leviston.
If they played a game today, KT Leviston would be your starting left tackle.
Wow.
He would be.
Well, that's not
Which
good,
is
as we know.
part of the reason why
Yeah.
all these
Yeah.
off-season movement predictions, whether it be mock drafts, trades, free agency,
Yeah.
have the Browns linked to tackles. And I'm going to give you from Monday, Bill Barnwell's trade idea for a tackle, and then from Tuesday, Matt Bowen on ESPN's best free agency fit for a certain tackle. We'll discuss which one for the price you guys think would make more sense for the Browns, or if you think both could be in realistic play for Cleveland this upcoming season. On Monday, Bill Barnwell proposed a trade between the Browns and the Jaguars. The Browns would acquire Walker Little and a 2027 7th-round pick for a 2026 5th-round pick. So a 5th for a 7th is the swap. The Browns would get Walker Little. This is part of what Bill Barnwell wrote in a much longer write-up on why this trade may make sense for both sides. Little, and this is according to Bill Barnwell, Little should also have some modest trade value because of his age. He turns 27 in April and his experience playing left tackle. I'm not sure Little is even an average left tackle, but maybe he settles in at that level on the right side or at guard. The good news is the Browns need starters everywhere. Little was signed to a contract extension by the previous Jaguars GM before James Gladstone took over. They
So how
had
much money is he
another
making?
player.
$11
It's a
million
3-year,
is his base
$41
for
million
this
deal.
year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not crazy money.
And the trade was like giving up nothing, essentially.
It's just swapping late round
So he
picks.
can't be any good.
So that's Walker Little.
Right.
Let me show you the other one. This was
Oh,
Matt
yeah, sorry.
Bowen's
Go ahead.
free agency prediction. He had Rasheed Walker, the Packers' pending free agent at left tackle, as the 8th best overall free agent. Matt Bowen said on ESPN, quote, with needs across the offensive line, the Browns should target Walker, the top offensive tackle on our board. His pass block win rate of 93.8% with the Packers ranked 11th among 68 qualifying offensive tackles in 2025. And he should be viewed as an upgrade in Cleveland as new head coach Todd Monken rebuilds the front.
How old is he?
He's 27 and has a projected annual salary, annual average, about $21 million.
Now the Packers,
they're not going to franchise tag him?
I was just going to say that. The Packers can just tag him.
Who lets a good, I mean, he's pretty good.
The good tackles never hit free agents.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to become a free agent.
And the reason that he's not realistic is because the Browns are sitting on pick number 6, right? Like they're going to draft their left tackle of the future. And even if they take
convinced
a
it's gonna
wide
go that way at
receiver at
6,
6, they still will be in the tackle business at 24. For where they are to pay that kind of money, assuming he even hits the market, to me it's just not realistic. Walker Little's realistic, and why would you get him for nothing? Because he's still due a lot of money. They extended him, right? He's been replaced there. He does play a position that everybody kind of needs one. Everybody's looking to upgrade. So if Jacksonville wants to move on, and if they want to or need to move on from that money, then that trade makes perfect sense.
And obviously there's synergy between the two.
But I'm not
teams.
sure that you would even pay a 5 to buy an $11 million contract. It might be less than that. The cost might actually be less than that.
Yeah,
you're buying $11 million in base salary for next year.
Yeah, I mean, that might just be a 7th-round pick for him or a 6th-round pick.
Correct.
Whatever.
Right, or a back-of-the-roster player and a late-round swap.
So maybe he's the right tackle next year, and you draft a guy at left tackle.
Well, you do have DeJuan under contract for 1 year. And when we've seen DeJuan healthy, it hasn't been often enough.
Right.
But we've seen him play at a decent level.
Especially at right tackle, he was better.
He'll be back on the right side next year.
Yeah, he'll be back on the right side. So what are you going to do at left? To me, it's your first-round player. Now, Spencer Fano, who the top tackle by a lot of people, he was mostly a right tackle. He played 1 year left in college. He played 2 at right.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. But I don't believe they'll be in the top of the tackle market, or if Rasheed Walker will even get there. Right. I think it is more in that range of looking for veteran help, whether it's in the lower tier free agent where you're getting nothing, or paying a draft pick to get a guy, right, and then moving on in the draft. Drafting 2 tackles, even at 6 and 24, is not out of the equation.
Yeah, I saw some mock draft over the weekend.
Daniel Jeremiah's new one has tackle for the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, that I know fans will be disappointed because they wouldn't have dressed wide receiver, but
that would mean they addressed wide receiver elsewhere.
Okay,
that's what that would mean.
But I mean, I guess, what are you making a trade? Right? There's no good free agent.
Yeah, you're making a trade, or you're paying for just somebody to not be Jerry Jeudy in free agency,
like Romeo Dobbs,
Wan'dale Robinson. Somebody
Mike Evans is not coming here.
Right. But you're making a trade.
Yeah,
you're just
Wan'Dale
adding
Robinson
a veteran
is not
presence.
bad. Yeah.
Right, and then you're taking 2 tackles, and then you're looking later for your playmakers at wide receiver.
Yeah.
There's going to be a run on wide receivers, and we don't know. Is it going to go from 15 to 25, and the Browns are at 24, or is it going to start at 20-ish? And then will the really good ones still even be there at 39? Or the Browns have to be in the quarterback business at 39? See, all these things are tied together, and until we get an indication, it's just wild speculation.
Well, would you take a flyer on Walker Little then? If he's the more realistic of the two.
If it's costing you nothing, who can, whatever. I mean, he's not a long-term answer, obviously, because he's not very good. I mean, look at his rankings there. I mean,
he's better than Cam Robinson because
he's better than what they got.
A 2x4 would be better than
Cam
Robinson.
Let me say this.
Yeah.
Cam Robinson got $12 million in free agency last year, guaranteed. And that's why the Browns were able to trade for him in late September when the stuff hit the fan.
Right.
Because Houston had already both given up and replaced him.
Yeah.
But he got $12 million on a 1 year deal last year in free agency. Dan Moore, a very average tackle his whole career, got $48 million guaranteed.
That's a good point.
So why am I saying Rasheed Walker's not realistic? Because this is the price for average to bad.
Right,
tackle.
so he's getting what?
So you don't think $21 million, the projection, is even close to the reality then for Rasheed Walker?
I'm saying that's not close to reality for the Browns.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right. And he might get more than that.
Because the cost of a tackle at 6 or 24 over the course of time is so much less.
Yeah, they just better get it right. And they have not done a good job of drafting offensive linemen.
That's right.
But, I mean, and then beyond that, they have to address guard. I mean, there's really there's no guards in free agency. Usually there's a couple of decent guards that get the free agency.
Well, they have Tevin Jenkins, who's a free agent, who they could bring back.
Yeah.
And it is just historically easier to find interior offensive linemen in free agency, or even in the Walker Little type of trade.
Yeah.
A guy that you think can be a starter, can potentially play multiple positions. Luke Whippler got hurt in the last game. We don't know. If that's
true.
Serious. We don't know if this organization holds out any hope for Zach Zinter 2 years in. So that's going to drive a lot of these decisions.
Yeah, I mean, you could be looking at a first round pick and DeJuan Jones at tackle with Walker Little as the swing tackle, and then the guards could be Tevin Jenkins and Zinter at center, and
Or a third rounder.
yeah, maybe the other guard's a third rounder. It's not.
Listen, drafting at least 3 offensive linemen
Yeah.
is on the table, maybe likely, and starting at least 2 rookie offensive linemen at some point in the season is likely to near certainty.
Yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon. Teams have started 2 rookie
They
offensive
can't count
linemen.
on DeJuan Jones playing 17 games.
No,
Correct. They
certainly
would like
not.
that to work out.
Yeah.
You know, in last year, like one of the underrated, understated stories was his move to left tackle. It lasted 2 games.
Right,
He
yeah.
got benched in the third and hurt in the third.
Yeah. So he definitely has to go back to the right side. But listen, you can't fix all 5 spots in 1 year.
No, but you have to address multiple spots. And you
Yes,
you have
yes.
to do it for the long-term health.
Yeah.
You have to do it through the draft. Tackle, you have to do it through
Right.
the draft.
I should rephrase. You can't long-term fix all 5 spots in 1 year.
And people are talking about Tyler Linderbaum, and there's obviously the link with
Right,
Lincoln, and he
sure.
played in the AFC North, and he's all that. If he gets out the door from the Ravens, it's because he wanted so much money that the Ravens just wouldn't pay it.
Right.
And then a team that's a lot closer to winning is going to be willing to spend money on Tyler Linderbaum.
That's true.
Than
And again, the Browns, they can't spend crazy money on a free agent offensive line.
They can, but it has to make sense with what
Yeah.
they're doing. I mean, they're going to create enough short-term flexibility, Bull, and everything
Yeah.
they've done is backloading these contracts, which is why where they are. So in 2 weeks, they're going to have a number that almost $50 million in free cap space. Okay, so they can
Yeah.
make moves.
All right.
That just doesn't account for that they'll still owe Watson $90 million.
Yeah.
Right. That some of these offensive linemen who are walking out the door this year will still have small dead money hits.
That's right.
Next year.
How long is David Njoku cap hit?
It'll be at least 2 more years.
Yeah.
Once it's officially processed
Right,
as opposed
right,
to June 1.
Yeah.
Right. Like you can't trade Jerry Jeudy right now because you have too much in cap commitments to him. You're going to pay that 2 years down the road.
Man.
Like this is what they've done.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they're going to have a number that says they're flexible, and that's true. But until they add some young, talented,
Right.
cost-controlled players, they're not going to be in a healthy cap situation.
Which they did last year, but they have still so
They
many
have
holes.
spent ahead to make sure that they have flexibility.
Yeah.
But to have all of these guys hitting free agency at once, and all of them before Joel's number gets June 1, which is the most likely scenario.
Yeah.
Those guys that are walking out the door, and Cam Robinson isn't even one of them, it cost them over $40 million in dead money. So Joel's will, like 13 or so of Joel's will get, so $30-some million will be on dead money on offensive linemen who are no longer on your team.
Yeah.
And it was all done for the last 2 years in which they won 8 games and saw their quarterback project flop.
Right.
That hurts.
Can't get much
That
worse than that. Good thing we kept the GM.